everyone. This is the Geek, the Furious Magnus, and you're listening to the Knights of Outer Ren episode, whatever. No one really knows when this is coming out. And I am here with GlitterGeekAli. How are you, girl?
Fine, how are you?
This podcast is about the Woman of Wonder, Diana Prince.
Mm-hmm.
It is... They never mention Wonder Woman in this movie.
And I thought about that when I walked out. I was like, oh, they never said Wonder Woman. And another DC movie that they did not mention the character's comic book name was The Dark Knight Rises. They never called Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, Catwoman.
You know, we're going to talk about Wonder Woman here. And I think that Wonder Woman benefits from the fact that it follows Suicide Squad and BVS and Batman vs. Superman.
Oh, yeah. But I love Harley Quinn. I bought all this merch before Suicide Squad had even come out, and I had so much faith that that movie would be good. And I went and watched it with, like, my comic book crew the first time, and I walked out of the movie liking it.
Yeah.
And then my dad said something about, well, I want to go see it, so I went with him, and I almost fell asleep. The movie has no repeat value whatsoever, and that's really upsetting. And the thing about Wonder Woman is I walked out, and I'm sure you thought the same thing, I walked out of Wonder Woman, and I was like, well, when am I going to get to watch it again?
Mm-hmm. I knew immediately I had to see it again. Like, that there's no way that I can... And we're talking about it having seen it, you know, once, or at least I've seen it once. You haven't seen it a second time, right?
No, I have not yet. I think I'm gonna go tomorrow or Sunday.
Yeah, I do not like to go twice to the movies to pay for anything that isn't Star Wars, but I may because I liked it that much, and specifically, I like those first two acts so much. Actually, the same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Like, I like those first two acts a lot, and then the third act, just like Guardians, you know, like I can find problems with, but I still like it enough that, you know, like, you can't just wipe away. It's kind of like the opposite of the Phantom Menace, where a lot of people say, okay, the third act of Phantom Menace is really good, but the first two acts aren't. I disagree with that, but still, I understand why people say it. For me, it's like the reverse of that. You know, like, just because there are problems in the third act, and the problems are minor, in my opinion, in Wonder Woman. Like, very small problems.
Very minor. I noticed a few things. I'm big on noticing hair. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I'm a girl.
Because you have hair?
Yeah, I noticed hair. And I noticed at one point that her curls looked a little bit more natural. And then they cut to Steve Trevor, and then they cut right back to Wonder Woman, and the curls it looks like they just took them off the curling iron.
Yeah, you know what, I didn't notice that, but just in the back of my mind, I can actually kind of see what you mean. I think I know exactly what you mean.
I hate stuff like that, because every time I watch it now, I'm going to wait for that. Like, oh, here's the misstep in hair continuity right here.
Like, I get really annoyed by certain continuity errors. Yeah. I actually didn't notice much of that in this movie. You mentioned the hair. I only acknowledge it now in the back of my mind, but...
If the only problem that I had with the movie was that the hair, you know, that hair problem, that's a damn good movie.
Yeah, that's pretty true. One of the, you know what? Let's just get it out of the way, because a lot of this is the mistake I think a lot of podcasts and YouTubers make when reviewing a movie. What do they do first? They tell you the positives, and then they tell you the negatives. So you end on the negatives? That's the dumbest fucking idea ever. Like, why do you do that? Collider does it all the time. Pisses me off. I was just watching their Wonder Woman review, and I'm like, why are you ending on the negatives? That's one of the things. Like, I love John Schnepp. I love him. And one of the things he'll do is he'll always backtrack to the positives, because he knows you can't end on a negative.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's start with the negatives here, and I have two. And really, that's it. Okay? That's how much I enjoy this movie. That I only have two. One of them has to do with Gal Gadot's acting. And this is the one place where Campy and I are going to agree. I never agree with Campy on anything.
You know I love him, but I will let you go on without...
Okay. I'm gonna point out one thing that he said that is true. Gal Gadot is not a great actor.
No.
She is not. But I think... for 90% of this movie, maybe even 95% of this movie, she nails it. Like, she gets it. So he's wrong about that, but
there are expressions.
Oh my God, she's so good.
Oh
She's so
my
good.
god.
There are 4 scenes, and I actually counted them. So there's only four, but there's
Mhm.
4 moments of genuine emotion, like where she has to react to a bunch
Mhm.
of characters in the scene with her, and everyone is out acting her in that moment. And it's always when there are other characters around her, and you see how much better the other actors around her are. That's the
Yeah.
only time I noticed it, and I'll mention it here, and this is just a this is like an acting criticism that I she can improve. Like this is not even that difficult for her to do, because the rest of it, like she nailed it, and she does not need to do anything better. One of the things you see with a lot of professional actors is in really emotional moments, they use their eyes and their
Yeah.
words and their voice. That's everything. She moves too much. She moves her body and her face too much in those scenes, and it stands out. Like it does come off as a B movie actor when they, but she's not. She's not a B movie
Yeah.
actor. Just those 4 moments, and I bet you if she goes back and watches it, she'll notice it. And especially if she goes back a year from now and watches it, and she'll
Yeah.
improve as an actor. I think in the next movie you will not see any of that. But otherwise, I was blown away by her in certain scenes, and I just tweeted about that. The baby scene.
Oh, I loved that.
Oh my
I loved that.
god, it was so
Baby.
genuine. But I'm only specifically talking about scenes, not her, just her movement, as in like the because in certain scenes she's moving quickly because she's very excited. I actually mean in the emotional moments when
Okay.
she should be about to cry,
Yeah.
and just watch. Okay, I want to talk about. Okay, well, actually, I'm gonna finish out my negatives because that's one, and then I'll get back to what I mean by that by pointing out a positive. The end sequence, the end fight. There is now. I actually felt like we didn't need another BVS ending. You know, like a big epic fight. And I understand that it's a book end. You know, because the story starts with it and you end with it. You know, like basically she's got to fight a god, right?
Yeah.
But did she really? And I actually think the movie would have benefited by not having her fight a god and maybe saving that for the next movie.
Yeah.
That's my criticism, really, because I actually thought the way it was shot. You know, you look at the way BVS was done, that big boss battle. The
Yeah.
only part of that actually that works is Wonder Woman stuff. And I don't like the Superman or the Batman stuff in that sequence. I love the Wonder Woman stuff, which is why there's no surprise in this. But it's shot better in this. Is that there's a natural feel to the way that the action is shot,
Mhm.
and also the emotional build up to that scene is intense, and that is her, like, you know, her best acting moment is in that moment when, and spoilers people, when her emotional level shoots through the roof.
Oh, I teared up there
Oh
too. There
my
were
god, it's
times
so
where I
good.
teared up. That was one of those moments I was like, maybe she's got this. Maybe she can do this. And I'm not talking about the character of Wonder Woman. I'm
Yeah, the
talking
actor.
about Gal Gadot. That she could do this. And the amazing thing is, I think this is going to outdo Man of Steel, and I think it genuinely stands a chance at outdoing Suicide Squad. I don't think it can beat BBS.
You mean
but
money wise?
yeah, money wise. But I think that this is definitely one of those movies that's it leaves an impact on everybody that walks out of it.
I think if it had not come out in the summer, if it had come out in December, it would have done Titanic type stuff, or
Yeah.
Force Awakens type stuff. I think the problem right now is there are too many movies coming up, but I do think this movie's going to have legs, because I think, what was it about? I mean, Titanic had teenage girls in 1996, or 97 or whenever it came out. They were the ones going to see that movie over and over and over. The Force Awakens had basically, teenage boys and 40-year-old men who feel like
And
teenage
myself.
boys, and young women like yourself who loved Rey. But I think this might be one of those summer movies that we rarely see, that will continue. It will be number 2 for a long time.
Yeah.
Like we just saw that with Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I think 3 or 4 weeks in a row, it was number 2.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see that with this movie. Like, even when Spider-Man comes out, I think that could happen. then we could start seeing it in, Suicide Squad numbers or something like that. Like, I think it's going to do at least Guardians of the Galaxy numbers, which was
Oh yeah.
370 million or something like that. Domestically, $250 million worldwide. I think it's going to do that. Now, if it does more than that, if we see legs that we haven't seen before, then this is going to be a really special movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it only means that, Wonder Woman 2, which now we've just learned that Patty Jenkins is directing, is probably going to be a monster. Like, it could be a movie that could hit 200 million if it does that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're projecting right now around 90 million, maybe 95 million. I'd like to see it cross 100 million only because it's that good.
Yeah.
And then continue, like, next week, maybe even make 55 million. Like, do something like that. Like, not have a 50% drop.
It's all about the drop.
Yeah. So we're gonna see what the drop is. I think the drop is gonna be small. I really do. I think it's gonna be around 45%. Usually it's over 50%. I think it's gonna be less. And if it is, it's gonna be it's gonna be so much fun. But anyway, go ahead. You did you have negatives or was that it? Okay, go ahead.
No, I had one more, and it was the casting of, spoiler alert, Sir Patrick / Ares. They could have cast Liam Neeson. I could see Liam Neeson in that role
But they already cast him in Batman. Like, I know he's not that's not DCEU, but I don't know. Don't you feel that?
It was just okay. So an actor like a Liam Neeson type. Could you agree there? Because
no, I agree with you 100%. I think I love that actor, but he is. I just think he's the wrong guy as that character. He was great as the other character, but he's wrong as this character. That's all. But he was fine. Yeah. I mean, I'm not.
But it almost seemed like his character was an afterthought, and his casting was an afterthought.
That's why I have a problem with that ending. Like, or that. I mean, it's fine. I'm not getting all negative, too negative about it.
Oh, I give it a solid A.
Yeah, but it's still like. I would say the beginning of the movie is an A+ for me. The middle of the movie is an A to an A+ for me, and then it's a B movie in the final. I mean, except for the emotion, which is incredible. It's like a B, whatever, B+ maybe movie for me. So all in all, it's an A movie. But is that your only negative? That his casting and the fact that he's playing that character and that basically what we already covered.
As of now, I'm gonna have to watch it again. Honestly, I'm probably going to have to watch it around 3 more times before I can tell you a really good list.
I agree. That's why I said I didn't even want to rank it. I ranked it in the origin stories. I said it's my second favorite origin story after Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Mm-hmm. And right before Iron Man. So Iron Man used to be my number 2 origin story ever. I love that movie. But no, Wonder Woman is better than Iron Man 1 because I think the Iron Man 1 ending is much worse than the Wonder Woman ending. So, and there's no emotion at all for me in the Iron Man ending. Like, it's just like, oh, and then we have this fight at the end. It's tacked on. It like doesn't even feel like it's natural to the movie. Whereas in Wonder Woman, it does. I mean, it's been set up the entire movie. This fight's going to happen. All right, so let's get to our positive. This is going to be a lot.
Yeah.
So
we might be here a while, friends.
Well, we'll see.
Pour yourself a cold beer and relax and get ready.
Yeah. So my first one is because I'm gonna mention this right up front because I'm afraid that this is gonna be a role and an actor that people are gonna not forget because you can't forget this character. Yeah. But it's because she's barely in the movie. People are gonna just kind of like be like, oh, that's right, we gotta mention this. So she's gonna be my first huge positive, Robin Wright.
Oh yeah.
Who is incredible. She's only in the movie for like 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, she almost steals the movie.
Yeah.
Like, she's so good. So good. I mean, and she is badass. And you have to understand, for someone my age, I grew up with her. She was first on, like, a soap opera, like, in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then she was in one of my favorite movies of all time, in my top 5 list of all-time movies, The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
And, like, I've had a crush on her. And then she played Jenny...
Oh, I forgot that she did that.
Forrest Gump. Yeah. Oh my God, she is such a great actor, and for her to be in this movie in this role, such a bad. Oh my god! And I hate that she died because. Oh well, it's a spoiler cast. I guess I'm gonna put that in the title because. Oh my god, I wanted more. And if I have a criticism of this movie, that is not a negative, that's not has nothing to do with what's in the movie, is that I wanted more. But they can do that in the second movie. She can go back to her land, and we can see more of her culture. I wanted more of that. And I actually loved those scenes so much, and I loved like the whole growing up, like that little girl. What an amazing actor!
Cute. She was so cute. Pretend fighting with the invisible sword. I mean, obviously it wasn't like the invisible jet or anything. She was holding a sword, and I just thought she was adorable. I thought she was so cute.
And child actors are really difficult. And you know what? I didn't care that she had a different accent from Gal Gadot. I didn't care. So what? I didn't, children's accents change. I mean, I grew up talking like this, I don't talk like that anymore. So, no, accents change. But it's like, she was so good. Actually, every single one, even like the background actors of characters who never speak.
Yeah.
You were like, who's that? Who's that? She seems really cool. Like, there's that blonde woman who comes around every now and then, and like, she's there when Diana is younger and then when she's older. And obviously they don't age quickly except for their children. So we see her a couple of times, and I don't think she ever speaks, but she looks really badass. And, she's like, you're just like, I want to know who that is. And I felt like that was so fleshed out well, and I feel like, and look, I'm not being, a misandrist here. Mm-hmm. I feel like a man could not have directed this movie as well. No. I just don't think they would have understood when to stop. Because there are things about this movie. There are scenes where she slows the movie down. Like, she's not speeding to the next scene. There's that scene where they're lying in the boat, and they're talking about, like, whether he can sleep next to her or not. Yeah. No way a man would have gotten that scene right.
And Patty Jenkins went about that so delicately, and it didn't feel awkward.
Because she understands that, like, a woman can have these thoughts too. Like a man, because she grew up in a time, she's my age, or she's a little bit older than me, but she grew up in an age where women were thought of as lesser people. It's just a reality. In the 80s, 70s, there was a movement in the 70s that kind of fizzled out in the 80s, actually. Yeah. And by the 90s, feminist was a bad word. It's only now starting to like try to come back a little bit, but it goes back and forth. And so she understands that there was a time when this conversation, it wasn't just in the 20s, it wasn't just in the teens, it also existed in the 80s and in the 90s even. And so she understands that this is she understands that conversation really well, and why a woman maybe like herself, would have been like, what is wrong with you? Like, you don't have to treat me so delicately. Like, I'm a strong woman. I don't need, and that in that sequence, she demonstrates what a strong woman is, not what men think a strong woman is. A strong woman isn't somebody who has to kick ass. A strong woman is somebody who has strong opinions and strong mindset and a strong will. And this entire movie, that's why I compared it to the first Superman, and I know a lot of reviewers have, and I know Patty has said it herself. It's so earnest, and there's so much heart in the character, and everything she says, she means. She is not, she's not waffling. Even in that moment when she is kind of like she doesn't believe, she is so strong-headed in that moment that she won't even listen to reason because she's so strong-headed. And that's an asset and a liability in that moment, towards the end of the movie. But she figures it out very quickly, but it feels believable. It doesn't feel contrived like someone else could have handled that. So there's a lot of this, especially that scene in the boat. It could have felt so contrived, and it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And the other thing, I told a friend, I walked out of that movie too, very much like I did Mad Max Fury Road. They never made a big deal about her being so strong in the same sentence as her being a woman.
Right.
And that was a big deal.
Yeah. And there are opportunities in this movie where there is a reference, obviously. I actually think it's one of the best scenes I've ever seen because I've actually been in countries where a woman walks into the room and the men will just be like, oh, there's a woman in there,
Oh,
and so when you see that, and I saw it in this sequence, I was like, did Patty Jenkins grow up in a family where this happens? Because I've seen this happen, and this is really accurate. Like, this moment is so accurate to what I have actually witnessed.
yeah.
One of the reasons why I'm such a feminist is because of the fact that I first grew up in Iceland, and then I moved to America with an Albanian family that grew up with these third world mentalities of like the male dominance.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what the? And I feel like maybe that's why I connect so much to this movie and why I am such a militant feminist. And even when I was a Republican, I was still a militant feminist.
Well,
Um,
you and I have that in common.
yeah.
Yeah, I was born in the States, but I was born in the South. I was raised in the coal fields of Appalachia, and I went to college a proud member of the GOP. And it wasn't until I took a class on HBO's The Wire. It wasn't any of my politics classes. It was HBO's The Wire that made me realize that conservative politics do not work in a country of this size. Look where I am now. It's literally been a 180 turn.
Yeah.
And you had that 180 turn, and I think maybe that's why we liked it so much, was because she had such a turn.
Yeah. And because she comes from, I mean, it's almost like the reverse story of us, but she comes from freedom and she goes to this oppression, and yet she is so, like, she's so much about righteousness, whereas, like, Steve is, but he's willing to do what has to be done. Whereas she is like the unmovable object, like she will not budge on her beliefs, which is, it's so earnest. And somebody was talking about, Patty Jenkins has even responded to the earnestness of this movie, how some people perceive it as cheesy. And I would say what she has said and what others have said, and I tweeted about it today, which was in 1977, which is now 40 years ago, almost 40 years to the day, almost, only off by a couple weeks, a little movie came out in 1977 called Star Wars.
Yeah.
And you know what was happening in the 70s? Cynicism, constant cynicism. Even, in fact, some of the greatest movies ever made were made in the 70s, but they're really like, they're so much about their counterculture and like it's the anti-pop culture era. And from that is born the 80s, which is the pop culture era, because they basically bastardized what the 70s were doing. But the one person who came out and was like, hey, guess what? Let's go really earnest. That's Star Wars. Han Solo is in it to kind of be the non-earnest one. They're cynic. But everyone else is really earnest. Everyone else is like, I'm a good guy and all that. 40 years later, almost to the date, we get another one, and it's Wonder Woman, just when we need it.
Yeah, really, really though. I just got off of Twitter before we started this. And do you follow Clark Wolf on Twitter?
Of course.
She said something about, getting emotional when she left, and how she left that movie having hope. And as a feminist, she'll get this. As a woman, I definitely get it. Right now, this is a time where not a lot of us have a lot of hope, this political climate.
Yeah.
And I saw that someone had replied to that, something along the lines of, what a joke. And I replied, I said, what do you mean? What a joke. Because I left emotional too. And he said, fake people. And actually, do you mind if I pull it up and I'll read it? I won't mention his name.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah. I'll mention it verbatim. Here we are. We are. Here's the thread.
We're ready.
Let's do it. She said, Wonder Woman was so great. It's the first thing that has made me feel good and strong and hopeful in a long time.
Aww.
And this guy said, LOL. And my response was, how is that funny? I'm curious, because it made me feel hopeful too. And he said, fake people, LOL. And I said, I don't think she was being fake. As women, this was a big deal for us. I hope it won't be a big deal for the next generation. And he said, you know, there is other women. I'm reading this is his grammar.
God.
You know, there is other women than Wonder Woman, right? No question mark. And I said, this is why we need feminism. And I used one of those emojis with this girl with a smile with her hand like whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, this is why feminism is evil most of the time. And he's from Australia, so you know, English is his first language, maybe, likely. And I said, okay, I get it. The idea of feminism to you somehow threatens your masculinity. Think that if you want, but good luck with girls. Bye. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, sadly, guys like that do fine with women because there are, you know, Uncle Toms in the you know, what should be the feminist movement. I mean, there are people who will sell out their own status in life, you know, the potential of their own status in life in order to gain favor with people that they just don't want to argue with. And that is really what happens. And, you know, I don't know what we're going to call him. Aunt Mary Sue, you know, like whatever.
That works.
I think that's, there's a bunch of Aunt Mary Sues out there who are like, oh, yes, you know, Ray is a Mary Sue and it's obvious. And I'm like, you can't. Like, just go and look up what that means, like where the term come from. Like, just use basic fucking understanding of language. And there are no Mary Sues anywhere. You know, the Mary Sue only exists in fanfic. Like, that's the only place it exists. So when you take the term and apply it just
Max
somewhere
Landis.
you don't like it, because there's a
Max Landis.
Yeah, Max Landis. When you do that, all you're saying is, I'm a bigot and I'm angry and I have to announce myself because change scares me. And I understand this. Listen, I was a Republican supporter for the longest time, for most of my life. I understand why you feel like you do. Don't think that I'm like against Republicans. Don't think that I'm against conservative ideas completely. I've said it before. I'm not afraid to say it. I am not pro-abortion. I am pro-choice. I am not pro-abortion. I would never ask someone to abort a child, and in fact, I would encourage not to do it because I feel very strongly about that. And yet, I don't think that it is my place to tell someone else what to do with their body in a way that I can never have a child, right? So I understand the conservative perspective. I love the South. Unlike many of my liberal Southern friends who hate the South, I love the South. I think the South is amazing. I think it has amazing culture.
Dude, I live in the South. I love it. The culture that has been built up around, there is no fence in feminism. I hope you get, and the listeners get what I'm saying. There is no fence in feminism. It's the people that do not agree with feminism that have put up the fence.
Yeah. Bigots, basically. I mean, the reason that the word bigot really is somebody who resists your differences purely because you're different and no other reason. And so all feminism is the idea that everyone should, by default, be treated equal. Not that everyone deserves the exact same shot at the exact same thing, but if you have the same education, you have the same experience and all that stuff, it shouldn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. That's where the difference comes in. And when people say like, women, you know, they take different jobs, or women make less because they don't work the same jobs or because they stay home, all these things, right? Yeah, that's because of 10,000 years of oppression. That's why that happened. So yes, it is a fact that women take less hours, take the lower paying jobs, because those were the only ways that they could work. Yeah. So obviously, that's why we have this oppression, not just with women, but with races. And now imagine being a black woman. They get it worse than anyone. And that's not my conjecture, that's facts. And I know that some people don't like facts, but that is a fact. And that's why a movie like this is so important. And I'm not, you know what? I am not ashamed of saying what I'm about to say. And I know that there are fuckboys out there who will go, oh, see, I knew it. I mean, he has a nice beard, but I knew there was something wrong. Too much estrogen. And listen, I used to be 600 pounds. So obviously at one point in my life, I had a lot of estrogen in my body. What, you didn't know that about me?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, I used to be 600 pounds. So I used to have a lot more.
Congratulations on your hard work.
It's still ongoing. So I you know, I used to have a lot more estrogen, so I was a lot more emotional back in the day. But so it's not just, you know, something like that. And I know I have a nice, you know, like full beard, still black at my age. Like, what's up with that? And I teared up watching this movie, not because of not of the emotional scenes. Obviously, you're gonna tear up. I was just tearing up because I was thinking to myself, if I was in this position, and yes, I'm an empath, so that's one of the problems is I'm very empathic.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching it and I am thinking about all the little girls who are going to grow up that when I'm in my 60s, this movie I think will change lives like big time. Like I think this movie could do for young women what Star Wars did for a lot of boys in the 70s.
Yeah. No, I agree because that scene where you first see her in the armor, she walks up the ladder, climbs up the ladder, and then you see her in the armor. And I went into this, I brought tissues, but it's because I have some allergy issues. And I didn't expect to have to use them for my tears. And I did not realize how much I needed to see that. Yeah. I had no idea how badly I needed to see that. I obviously didn't, you know, I wanted to see the movie, but I didn't go in there thinking I want to see this because it's a feminist movement. No, I didn't know how much I needed that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of women are going to feel the same way. And obviously they're going to be the Aunt Mary Sue's. They're going to be like, I don't need to see that because you know what? Feminism isn't even that important. And this will motivate a lot of fuckboys and Aunt Mary Sue's to rage against the movie and maybe be negative just to be negative. Like almost like I say like the Titanic, Avatar, Force Awakens backlash, which is when something is too popular, when something is too lauded or anything like that, you have to take it down a peg. And now this movie has the bigots on top of that and the Aunt Mary Sue's on top of that who are going to go extra hard on this movie. Now, I did go to a showing, an early showing, 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much 50-50 men and women.
Yeah.
So there are guys going to this and people clapped at the end of it and all that stuff. So I think for the people who are not internet whores, who don't go around constantly going on the internet like us, going on, you know, Reddit or YouTube or going into comment sections, going on Twitter, those people won't even know this is all happening and they'll just be like, wow, that was a really great movie. And maybe moms will take their daughters and their sons. Actually, even more so. It's really important for young girls. I think it's just as important for young boys too, to see a woman like this and to grow up not thinking, oh, she's less than us somehow. Like my generation, even me as a feminist, I grew up thinking there's a podcast out there somewhere from like 2007 with me saying some dumbass shit about women, like really dumb fucking shit that I'm embarrassed, and I'm not gonna delete it, and it's still up on my website and everything. Where I'm saying some really stupid shit about women because that's how you grow up. But you have to be willing to learn to change. You know, you have to change. And that's something that I've done over the years. And I think this is the type of movie, and The Force Awakens, another reason why I love The Force Awakens so much, is because you are starting a change. It's not just for political reasons. I mean, I love it because I think the characters are strong. But the same thing with Wonder Woman. I think all the characters are really strong. Even the background characters, even the side characters, even the team. Maybe individually they wouldn't work that well, but I think in the story they work really well. Mm-hmm. I think all of this is really important. And then on top of that, it's a really fun movie.
Exactly. It is a really, really fun movie. And in my screening, I do live in the South. You know this. Yeehaw! But I live in a city. I live in I'll do it in the Kimmy Schmidt voice, gentrification. You know, I'm surrounded by, educated people. Okay? And most of them I know are liberal. I know my neighbors are liberal. But, the surrounding areas are very conservative. The farmers, just average everyday people. And I sat in front of a guy and his daughter. And the daughter, I think she looked like she was around 14. And she was going, whenever, something really neat would happen. And it's
Yeah.
stuff like that, like you were talking about, you changed your mind, you evolved, you grew. You don't have to be really well educated to realize that feminism is needed. It's about exposure. And the fact that this, little girl wanted to go watch this movie and her dad took her, that was exposure.
And maybe he is a bigot and he doesn't think women should be paid equally, which I never understood. You don't want your daughter or your wife to make as much money as the guys they work with? How does that make logical sense?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are still men who think that it is fair that women get paid less because they think that, like, by magic, like just by birth, you have the right to be better than someone else. That's not right. And hopefully movies like Wonder Woman, especially good ones, like if it had been a bad movie, I think that would have been a real big problem. Yeah. They needed to get this right. And then you even look at Patty Jenkins, who made Monster, which is, a horrible movie. Not a bad movie, I'm saying. It's horrible to watch.
A horrible situation.
But it is so well... I mean, look, I would say 90% of what the director does on set is run the set. Like, that's the director's job, to make sure that everything is going as planned and all that. The other 10%... The only other thing that a director should be doing, because people often conflate like cinematography with directing, and it's not. For most directors, they're not the cinematographer. Most of the time when you're like, oh my God, that movie was so amazing, I love the way it was directed, you're like, no. That's how it was shot. That's the cinematographer. You're giving credit that the director's credit is going to the cinematographer. Why do you think the Academy Awards has 2 different categories for that? Exactly. Because it's the visuals that you look at, that's the cinematographer. How good a movie looks is the cinematographer, unless the director is really like pushy, unless they really push their vision their way, like like Michael Bay or something like that, who's known as a very pushy director.
The greatest director of all time.
Is this John Roca? So
that was a joke. That was a joke.
So. We only barely got through the actual discussion about the movie.
Now we're just talking politics. I feel like we're on Bill Maher's show or something.
No, it's fine, because this is usually what happens on my podcast, is we start talking about politics. And one of the reasons, even when I used to do the Chuck podcast back in the day, and I think I was still a Republican back then, we used to talk politics. It would always transition. We'd start, and that's why I said, like, why am I doing a Chuck podcast when all I want to do is talk about everything else but that? And I actually want to kind of turn it back around and to what Clark Wolf said in that tweet. Coming out of that movie, knowing all that, because look, Wonder Woman's a sad fucking movie, man. That movie is sad and dark, and it deals with war in a really powerful way because it's so happy, and then it's so fucking sad. Like, people fucking die, and like children, it's just terrible. And you see it, and because the character is so earnest, and yet you walk out of that movie feeling uplifted. And it's almost like a metaphor for depression.
Yeah.
That you can be so dark and everything can be so wrong, but that you can be uplifted by something so, like, by beauty. And a lot of times, like, depressed people will see something so beautiful and it will make them more depressed.
Yeah.
That can also happen, but it can have the opposite effect. The thing is, you don't even know when it's going to happen until it happens.
No, you never have any idea. And the thing, I had mentioned this earlier, and we didn't get off topic necessarily. We just got to something else. And I didn't.
It's the Knights of Outer Ren. We have no topic.
It's fine. It's fine. But I got a message, and I had tweeted out, that I had just been, I'd been a little down lately, and he messaged me, this person that I really admire, really look up to as somebody, I want to have that job one day. I don't want to take the job from him, but, I want to have that job one day. I want to do that kind of work. And he said, if you need to take a break from YouTube for a little while, from doing this for a little while, that's okay.
I actually think that probably the more creative you are, the more likely you are to suffer from depression.
Yeah, no,
because it does activate. There's no doubt about it. Look, we all talk about this constantly, especially the creative types who suffer from depression. It is definitely a motivator. Like, in a weird way, it can.
It's a drug.
Yeah.
because that depression gives you more inspiration. You know, when I first went on an antidepressant, I loved to write short stories, and I never let anybody read them, but I loved to write short stories. And when I first went on the my antidepressant, I have no shame in saying I'm on an antidepressant. You know, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for the
Right.
antidepressant. Um, I couldn't write. I couldn't
Yep.
write stories. I couldn't write poems. You know, it irritated me so much because I couldn't get out the things that I knew that my brain was capable of.
Is actually one of the problems. I think maybe the problem for Chris Cornell or anything like that is that, or even Carrie Fisher, because Carrie Fisher was so smart. Now she didn't commit suicide, but I'm saying like she suffered from depression and all these
Yeah,
other things, right? And I think that one of the things is that a lot of depressed people, they end up medicating themselves with other types of medication,
yeah,
drugs of other types,
alcohol.
because alcohol or other kind of drugs, because they help, but they don't take away that artistic voice in their mind. And I think that's why you see a lot of them turn to certain types of drugs that maybe
Yeah,
spiral them out of control. But for the depressed person, especially the more intelligent you are, the more likely you are to almost weigh, to say to yourself, like, I would rather die young than die old and not myself. Like that, and there's a lot of people who talk that way.
exactly. You know, sometimes I think, well, maybe, and I never do go off of the medication, but sometimes I think, well, maybe if I went off of the medication, I would have more, gumption to film. I would have more gumption to
You'd
get that.
probably have less, though. I mean, because let's be real. You would have inspiration, but you would never do it.
And I wouldn't be able to keep my job. And
Yeah.
the thing, I love my job. You know, I get to go out and talk to people. And the way that I look at it is I might be the only kind voice that anybody hears all day long. Being an empath, and you'll understand this, you cry, I'll cry. You're upset, I'll be upset. Because you soak in everyone's emotions and then you take on those emotions as your own. And then they affect everybody else around you. And that's the thing about depression is, and this is just, we live in a narcissistic society, let's get real. The people that don't understand your depression and have to watch your depression, they get annoyed by it.
Yeah, because they think it's like, oh God, here this person is just, they're trying to get attention or whatever, and it's like it's the opposite.
Yeah.
We would rather have no attention at all for this than the attention. You think, and that's what I'm like. That ignorance, that level of ignorance that even applies to feminism and all that. Like, why we have what we've now coined, which I'm sure if suddenly somehow this podcast goes viral and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe that he corrupted the Mary Sue, because there's a website called the Mary Sue that's essentially trying to take the name back. But I'm going to say it again: the Aunt Mary Sues, who go around and belittle the feminist movement, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. But again, we've already covered that. It's the same thing. Like this is coming from ignorance, from people who don't want to learn because it's too tough for them. Because you say
Yeah.
it's a narcissistic society, I say I don't think it's a narcissistic society. I think it's just a really self-absorbed world where we encourage people to take selfies all day,
Yeah.
and I don't mean like that. There's no judgment for that, but I'm saying that even the judgers of that, and I'm fine if you want to take pictures of yourself all day. But I'm saying like what happens is when you do that, when that's all that your life becomes about is
Yeah.
how good do I look, it devalues personal relationships, and it all
Yes.
becomes about meow meow beans, as community, as Dan Harmon put it, the meow meow beans, the likes, the fucking favorites, the whatever. That's your entire life becomes. And so what we're developing a culture of young people who are going to grow up like, I don't give a fuck what you're doing at 13, as long as you don't become a 23-year-old who then has a child and you raise them that way. This is what happens with cultures. The reason that Generation Y, or your generation, the reason millennials are better people than Generation X is because Generation X realized that the baby boomers sucked as parents. And so we overcompensated and made these children who love themselves, right? But there's a problem with that, which is, yeah, you're more accepting of people's differences and all that, but you're also creating a generation yourselves of young people who are now, they always take more of what their parents do and try to like top it. And so you're creating narcissists. That's the problem. It's really the coming generation. That's the narcissist generation. That's the generation that's going to be effed, because they are they're growing up in a world where that is fine. The mom is taking a picture of herself all goddamn day. I'm not saying it because it makes you a bad person, but it's how it looks to your children, or how it looks to people you can influence. Like, let's say you're influencing young girls or young boys even. You are creating this culture of people who are not Wonder Woman. They are Tony Stark, yeah. So, yeah, there's probably a cut somewhere in this podcast because we needed, we had human interests happening. So, yeah, we talked about a lot. We talked about depression. We talked about feminism. We came up with a whole new term for women who are anti-feminism.
Aunt Mary Sue.
Aunt Mary Sue's. And we talked about Wonder Woman, and we barely have gotten through the Wonder Woman movie. So I wanna tackle a few more of the things that I really liked. I thought, and I have to see the movie again because there's a lot of things that are happening. But I loved like the hot tub scene or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I liked that too.
The penis references, like the many way. And at my screening, I don't know if yours caught this, but there's that one point where he says something. There's another penis reference right at the end of that scene.
I'm not average.
Yeah, and it's like, and I don't think no one at my screening caught it. Like, I laughed, no one else did, and I think that they didn't catch that. There were a couple of things too in the movie where what's his name? His secretary says a few things that I think she says it very quickly, and I think they didn't catch it because I was laughing and other people weren't. But that whole scene, like with her getting dressed and her, even though that had kind of been spoiled in the trailers and all that stuff, was still really funny. I wish some of the things that they shown in the trailers had not been shown at all. Like, there was that one scene, I think, in the final trailer, and maybe I shouldn't have watched it. That's something I'm starting to consider with some of these. Like, I am not watching any of the Baby Driver trailers anymore because I don't want to know anymore. I don't fucking need to. Or the Apes trailers, like I don't want to see anymore.
For that movie, I know we're not talking about that movie, but I'm really excited for that movie.
No, I am, and we can talk about whatever we're excited for. But in this movie, even like. There's a great moment, man. There's actually a lot of really good dialogue in this movie. There's some cheesy dialogue too, but there's a really good piece of dialogue and a great fucking moment. And just these are the moments, like I was saying before. I don't even think I got to that point. That 10% is the director. Yeah, because I got on the cinematography angle. That 10% is the director dealing with the actors. Yeah. And so when you get a good performance out of an actor, a lot of times you can say that was the director's influence. Like, unless, of course, it's a great actor. Like, yes, I get it. Charlize Theron was a great actor already, and then she won an Oscar for Monster. And you could say, like, hey, maybe that's why they didn't give Patty Jenkins another movie for 14 fucking years. But I think it's just ridiculous that she didn't, because in this movie, you see Gal Gadot, not a great actor. She's an okay actor. In this movie, a far better actor, I think, because the director is that good. And there are a couple moments where she has to be really earnest. It almost never works. We are such a jaded, cynical culture these days that earnestness comes off as super cheesy and people don't like it. And I can't even think of one scene where her earnestness felt off or felt cheesy.
It never felt fake. It felt so genuine every time. Every time that she, made some kind of reference to, she was, born to help people or, anything like that. It didn't feel cheesy. It felt real. And, it's stuff like I want to say stuff like that, but I don't. Like, I feel like I was put on this earth to help other people and to make other people happy. Do I need to be recognized like Wonder Woman? No, but I feel like my life has been put here to help other lives because I know what pain feels like. Her saying that out loud, not on a podcast, in a movie, it felt genuine. It didn't feel fake, and she had the earnestness, however you could say that, of
I think that's right. Yeah,
I think that's right. She had that of a 5-year-old,
pretty much.
and
Yeah.
I do not mean that as an insult. And the reason I do not mean that as an insult is because whenever I feel like I'm not capable of something, I ask myself, now what would 5-year-old Allie think of this? Would 5-year-old Allie go for it, or would 5-year-old Allie say to stay back? And if 5-year-old Allie thinks that, if I asked myself at 5, if I was able to look at myself at 5 years old and say, what do you think I should do? If the 5-year-old says to do it, I'm going to do it. And the reason that I say that is because I feel like when you're that young, if you have not had a lot of trauma in your life, you still believe that the world is good. You still believe that those fairy tales, while they might not be real, the moral of them is real.
And you actually said something really important right there, which was, I mean, outside of that, which was if you haven't had a lot of trauma in your life. And because there are 6-year-olds or 5-year-olds who've had trauma in their life, and they will never be the way that, what people call normal. They'll never be that. For the rest of their lives, they will be affected by that trauma. And that's why it's so important. Like, you look at Wonder Woman in this movie, and the little girl you see that starts the movie, and then, she grows up, she gets older. It's the same character from the beginning of the movie up until there's a moment in the movie where you see almost the switch is flipped, and that's when she kills the guy that she thinks is Ares and he's not.
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't understand. They should have, and she's so certain that she has a she loses her religion in that moment. Like she just goes, what? This makes no sense to me. I was so sure that I would just kill. And we as the audience, along with him, are like, yeah, because it's not real. That's why. Like, you dope. You don't get it. And yet in the end of the movie, everything she believed is confirmed. She is validated 100%, because what happens at the end of the movie, the Germans and the Allied fighters are all standing there on the tarmac together and kind of embracing and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's because the veil of the gods has been lifted from them, and they are no longer. And it wasn't just the Germans who were under that spell; it was the Allies too.
Yeah.
And so the idea there is that all of them were equally bad. They all thought they were doing the right thing. They were all under the same spell. And I've actually seen some reviews that say that actually there have been a couple of negative reviews that were negative purely because of this, right? Because they say, well, it devalues World War One, and it takes away. No. This is an alternate universe. Okay, you have to understand. DC and even Marvel, they're not our worlds. They are like side worlds right next to ours.
Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3.
Whatever. That you can't look. They are the same things happen in their world that happen here, but they're different. That's how you have to look at it, you dopes. Okay? In their world, that's what happened. I understand, like 20 years ago, maybe, you would have had outrage over this because people would have been like, what? But we've now established a world where this is different. Flash exists in this world. He's already been in another movie before this one. Maybe the only good thing about BBS is that he was introduced for a second. There is so much Superman, the first Superman, to this character, and we have not seen that version of Superman since the first Superman. What was that, 70 whatever?
Was the director Richard Donner? Is that his name?
Donner, yeah. When you go back to that movie and you watch it, the special effects don't hold up, but it is like, that's the movie we've been waiting for. That's what I understand that you don't want to. You know, one of the things that people are critical of the Force Awakens, they go, "Oh, the Force Awakens is too much like a New Hope," and obviously it's there are elements of New Hope in it, but there's also elements of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in it. I mean, it's like an amalgamation of all those movies. The reason that it was important to do something like that to a new generation is to say this is why Star Wars is Star Wars. The Force Awakens is the culmination of all that is great about Star Wars. And yes, if it repeats for you because you're 40 years old, I understand it maybe doesn't work as well for you. It should, but maybe it doesn't. I understand maybe that's not what you wanted to see. But the notion that something is a bad movie because it repeats something, no. Execution matters more than how new something is. Like, you can make a movie that is way different. And I would say Man of Steel is that. Man of Steel is the different Superman, and it is not good.
Superman. That's not the Superman I grew up with.
And it's not good. I am not sorry that I don't like that movie, and I'm not sorry that you do. Like, fine, if not you, but like someone listening. I'm saying if someone's listening and they love that movie. I know a guy who loves that movie, who adores it. I know that the Collider guys constantly talk about it, and I'm just like, I roll my eyes like way back in my head every time they say it's a masterpiece. Every time John Campius is a masterpiece, I roll my eyes back in my head. I almost die. But you know, the best parts of that movie are actually the Russell Crowe stuff. Like, I think that's the only good stuff in the movie, and he's a side character really in the movie. But you know, it's like it would have been better if you would have essentially rebooted, recreated the first Superman with those ideas in there, and then just done your own thing instead of making it so different that it wasn't familiar. So we have already seen time after time, it's not just Superman, time after time we've seen someone try to do something different. You know, how about Batman and Robin? Terrible movie. There's some decent things about that movie, but for the most part, it's not a good movie. And and it's different, and it's same, but it's different. He tried to do something a little bit more colorful, but it was the wrong time to do it. There are movies that do something really different and are really good, and yet no one watches them because in that moment, like, the audience isn't prepared for that. And there's a lot of movies like that. Fifth Element is one of them. Fifth Element is brilliant. No one went to see it. Star Wars could not afford to do Rogue One first.
No. Oh, no.
And so they had to do The Force Awakens. Like, The Force Awakens is like the sacrificial child.
Yeah.
And it was really well made. And that's why I say, you know, that's why The Force Awakens is my third favorite Star Wars movie. Because
Mine too. Yeah. Mine too. And, I mean, you know I'm a Star Wars sweaty. You've probably seen pictures of my Star Wars.
I've seen your videos.
Yeah. I am a Star Wars nut, and I have so many problems with Rogue One. It's one of those things I didn't need it. Does that make any sense?
No. That's exactly what when I saw that movie, I said, the only thing that I mean, look, the cinematography is amazing in that movie.
Oh, it's stunning, especially once they get to Scarif. It's just stunning.
And I mean, even just the way they shoot the action sequence. I mean, obviously that's part of the cinematography, but that is just so beautiful, and everything looks so good in that movie. I mean, I can't take that anything. And I really like a couple of the characters, but I just feel like the way they play that whole movie out, like towards the end of the movie, especially. You know, when you have the two characters who basically go, "Oh, we're off to die because it's a cool shot." Like, there are tons of aircrafts around, tons, and everyone's just running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Why aren't you trying to get on one of them? Seems like you could outrun that thing. It's not moving that quickly.
Well, and it's event driven, and I'm no, you know, I don't go to critic screenings. Obviously, you know, I'm not there yet. I'm going to say yet, but. You know, I go to the regular screenings of movies, but I feel like, you know, Rogue One, just from a fan perspective, it was event driven.
Yeah.
The Force Awakens was character driven. From
second one of that movie to the first time a dialogue is spoken, everything from beginning to end, it is 100% about the characters, and the plot is in the background, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that because, much like in Wonder Woman, if you do not get these characters right, who cares if the plot is interesting? Who cares what's happening? You know, And it's good that the World War I setting actually works in this movie. Much better than it works. The World War II setting works in the first Captain America, and I like the first Captain America, and this movie is often compared to it. No, this is, again, I've said many times, I like the first Captain America. I think it's a really good movie. This is light years better because I only care about Captain America and Captain America, and even Winter Soldier, which is my second favorite comic book movie of all time. I do not give a shit about the Winter Soldier. I don't care about him. I care about what's going on with Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that stuff. That's amazing. Great writing in that movie. And those characters are really interesting. But the titular character is not interesting. Well, there's whatever. The subtitle titular character, whatever. Is not interesting. Is not even interesting in Civil War. I don't think I don't think that's the right actor for it. I don't know. I just don't like something about the Winter Soldier. I just don't like something about Bucky.
But and going back to Wonder Woman, that was what made Wonder Woman so great, because was there really a character that you didn't care about except for Ares?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the villains, which is, listen, they made a great Marvel movie, okay? Wonder Woman is a great Marvel movie because the villains suck.
Kevin Feige did a great job.
Yeah, congratulations on another great movie, Kevin Feige. Because also, she was supposed to be hired for Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah.
And, I mean, now you look at that. First of all, Thor: The Dark World is not a good movie. I don't think any of the Thor movies so far. I think the next one might be great, though.
Yeah.
But the first two, they're okay, but they're not great movies. I think if you would have had Patty Jenkins on Thor: The Dark World instead of that Game of Thrones guy, who basically made a decent Game of Thrones episode out of Thor: The Dark World. I think if you would have had her, oh my God, imagine the heart in that movie. Imagine the great character beats in that movie that we got with Wonder Woman. And I know it may sound to some people, there are going to be a few people who are going to listen to this. And granted, there are only going to be about 20 people who are going to listen to this podcast. And most of them are going to be like, why the hell did you guys ramble on so much? But there are going to be people going to come in and go like, yeah, it's not that good. It's not that good. No, it is that good. I am not one for hyperbole. I am not the guy who runs around going like, this is the greatest ever, or this is the worst ever, or whatever. When I see something that I can just, because we're both empaths, because we can sense kind of like the room, we can sense people, the way people absorb things, not even when they're around us. We can almost project what they're going to do. Oh, and we've never mentioned this in the podcast, but we are birthday twins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we were both Aquarians. Right at the end of being an Aquarius, towards being a Pisces.
We're on the same day. So, I mean, different years, obviously, because I'm like 90 years older than you. But still, we have very similar personalities. This is no surprise, because I think the first time that I ever found out when your birthday was, I was like, she has to be, like, I don't know if I asked you that or you offered it, but I remember thinking, like, she has to be an Aquarius, right? Like, and I'm not like a big, astrology guy, but
no, I'm not either.
But I was like, she has to be an Aquarius.
Yeah,
right? Like she has to be.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I don't believe in astrology in the way that, like today's going to be like this, like
No. I'm a physics guy. I believe in, astronomy. Okay. Yeah. I don't believe in astrology, but I believe in time of year of birth, where you're born, where you're made. I was made in the USA, by the way. I was made in New York City. I was born in Iceland because I was transported against my will in my mother's belly. My mom did the opposite of what, Trumpers accuse people of doing. She shipped me out before I could be born here.
She took you out of there.
Yeah, how dare you, Mom? My mom did not think that one through.
But I do believe, though, in your birth date having power. And the reason that I say that is because I'm an Aquarius moon and a Cancer sun. And the exact opposite of an Aquarius is a Cancer.
Yeah.
And the Cancer, the Aquarian is supposed to be so aloof. And the moon is strongest in Cancer from everything I've ever read. And so basically, everything I've ever read about having an Aquarius sun and a Cancer moon is on the outside, you are going to be stone cold. But the inside, everything is just mushy goo, and you cannot help it myself, but to get emotional.
I do have a friend who is very much into astrology, and she'll talk to me about things, and she'll be like, "Oh, there's things about you. They're so not Aquarius," and I'm like, "Well, first of all, because that really doesn't mean anything." But I try not to belittle her beliefs, so I don't say that. But in my mind, I'm like, that's because this is all hogwash. But yeah, it's goofy, but also maybe she's right. You know, like because I am the kind of person who, because the empath and all that, the intellectual bits, and the I try to be reasonable. I also say to myself, like, well, maybe there is something to it. It's just different. It's not exactly astrology. It's something else. Like I say, like time of year you're born or whatever. But there are definitely things about when you read like and I'm not talking about your daily horoscope. Like this is what most people, when they dismiss astrology, they go, "Oh, it's a daily horoscope. It's so stupid." Of course, like it's just written like ambiguously so that when you read it, it sounds like you always. Every one of them sounds like you. But or like a fortune cookie, you always read the fortune cookie. You go, "God damn, how did they know?" Because they're written ambiguously. You can do this anytime. In fact, my fake Star Wars spoiler site, the original idea was to write everything ambiguously so it sounded like everything I said was true.
I love that.
Did you read my episode 9 review? You have to go read that.
I'll have to go read that, but I absolutely loved that. And as someone who tweets back and forth with Jason Ward, and I feel like making Star Wars is, you know, like really legit.
They are legit. They're the only legit site out there.
Reading your parodies, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 90%. I say that too much. I'm 50% parodying Mike Zero, and 50%.
No comment.
And 50% parodying Star Wars Newsnet.com.net. Whatever. That's where the name comes from. Yeah. Because now they've actually relaxed their BS since I actually started the parody account. And I'm glad, because I think they are, as Jedi Council constantly has to tell us, because they pay them to say it, that, you know, they are an aggregator.
I love Jedi Council. Like, that's how I got into Collider.
I understand. It's fine. I listen to them. But I'm saying they constantly go, "Oh, great aggregator." But they are. And that's actually true. Even though they're paid to say it, that's actually true. Star Wars Newsnet is really good aggregator. And I've said, like, stick to aggregating. Stop fucking saying you have a scoop, because every time you say it, this is actually one of the things I respect about John Campea. He got 3 in a row wrong, and he said, "Fuck it, we're out of the fucking, you know, the scoops game. We're out. Like, we're not doing it anymore." And I was saying, basically, by doing that parody site, I was saying to Star Wars Newsnet, do the one good thing John Campea has ever done with his life is okay, he married well. Fine, he married well. But he said, "I am done with the scoops game. I got too many in a row wrong." And then Star Wars Newsnet posted 9 million fucking things on their website before San Diego Comic-Con, Star Wars Celebration. And you and I were having private conversations, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you, none of this is happening.
Yeah.
None of this is happening. I didn't even need insider sources to know that. Okay.
No, because like my biggest, you know what I want in Star Wars, and like I'm of the belief like it's probably not going to happen, but at least I can admit that it's probably not going to happen. You know, you've got those out there, you know, that still really truly believe that that's going to happen. I'm not even going to mention the name because you know what it is.
Are you saying Raylo?
Yeah.
It's never happening.
No, I want it to happen, but I don't think it will.
No.
And you know, I'm gonna take a little time out from that to just say one thing. I wouldn't be talking to you right now had it not been for Collider, because Collider.
I'm not shitting on Collider. I think that they have amazing people. In fact, out of all of the shows on YouTube that do the same thing, I think they have the best people.
Yeah, no, well, and, you know, the thing is, some of them follow me on Twitter, and I want them to know that...
I know, Mark Ellis already responded to the one thing I said, which was really funny, because I love, like, Mark is my favorite out of the whole bunch. Well, John Schnepp and Mark Ellis are my favorite.
And he's a Virginian, too. He's a Virginian.
And he's a really sweet guy. And he's really funny. And I've actually seen his comedy routine, and he's genuinely a really good stand-up comic. Like, he's really good.
My Uncle Bruce is really into his comedy.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I was like, when I heard, I was like, what? Mark Ellis is a stand up? Like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, everyone's a stand up. And then you see him, and you're like, oh, he's a real stand up comedian. Like, he's actually really funny.
He's really good. Like, he could have his own sitcom kind
No
of thing.
doubt. He also seems like a kind of guy who enjoys doing what he's doing, and
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't want to change it up too much. He probably could be more successful, but I'm one of those people who says, stop trying to push people to be more successful than they want to be,
Yeah.
because some people are just, you can tell he's really intelligent. No, the thing that I took him to task for was when he said that the whole Oscars thing was staged, the reading of the winner at the end there. And I was like, that's dopey. Like, and I can't believe that Mark Ellis is saying this, because I feel like this guy's intelligent. Why is he saying that? Like, this is the kind of thing that Mark Ellis would be going like, yeah, that's ridiculous, normally on Collider. So, and then he doubled down on it, and then he kept up, and I was just like, what the fuck is he doing? So that's the only thing. And the only time he's ever responded to anything I've ever said was that. And I was just like, of course. This is like the one thing that I rage against is, don't be mean to people on Twitter, because you don't know when the one time they're going to reach, and then it happened. And I was just like, God, I'm such an asshole. So I felt bad. I actually did, because even though he took it in stride and he was really nice about it, I'm sure he wasn't like, I know internally, like, we act a certain way. We project a strength that doesn't actually exist. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he didn't like it. I don't think even if he's chill as fuck, and he seems like it.
He is. I did get to meet him at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
I didn't end up actually talking to him as much as I ended up talking to Ken Knapsack, but Mark Ellis actually talked to my dad. Aww. And talked to my Uncle Bruce more, and they really hit it off. And I'm still trying to decide, did I leave a good impression or a bad one? Because Mark Ellis remembered Uncle Bruce. And, the thing is, when you watch someone on YouTube that much, or any TV show for that matter or whatnot, you feel like you know them. But it was something about getting to see these people that I just really never expected to meet, that I have been watching for years, really admire, and I don't see them in a celebrity light. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And by
the way, we should kind of separate, because there is a difference between the schmoes and Collider. Yeah. The way that, because you and I watch the schmo every week. That's my favorite. That's actually how I got into the whole Collider thing. Is I watch the schmoes.
Okay.
And that's where I get, like, Mark Ellis, he was like the funny one on that group. Like the funny, intelligent one, and the rest of them were all like boys, you know what I mean? Like men, like. And
way forced,
Yeah, except for Ken. Like, Ken has always been a mystery, Like, Ken is a really interesting guy. And I've often said Ken is my hero. Like, he's the guy I want to grow up to become, although he's younger than me. But he's the guy I want to grow up to become. Because there's something, Ken Knapsack, really interesting. I know this is such a fucking divergent, and I mean, no one is going to care about this conversation. But Ken Knapsack is like the guy who doesn't want to succeed, and yet despite all his efforts to not succeed, has.
The thing that I really admire about him is no matter how much success he's had, I feel like he probably acts the same
He's
today.
the same guy, yeah.
He was a teenager. And I interact on Twitter with him some. We tweet back and forth from time to time. And because, I'll occasionally live tweet during schmoes and whatnot. And I guess they noticed that. And
they wish you a happy birthday.
They did wish me a happy birthday. But I went, at Star Wars Celebration, I went to the meet and greet. And I didn't even say anything. I didn't say anything. And Ken Knapsack saw me and said, Allie, he's a real person. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, after meeting John Campea, after meeting Mark Ellis, after meeting Jeremy Johns, after meeting Perry Nemiroff, they act in person the exact same way that they do on screen.
Yeah, and I would expect that, because their personalities, it's probably their natural personalities that make them good at what they do. So they're going to be like, and I also think like Perry is probably just incapable of not being genuine. So Wonder Woman.
So Wonder Woman, great film.
All right, everyone, thanks for listening. We're just gonna cut the podcast short because it's already 2 hours long, and most of you are already asleep.
And we'll probably do it again.
Yeah, oh yeah, we should definitely do it again. Anyway, Allie, tell them where you are on the Twitter and on the YouTube.
You can follow me on YouTube at GlitterGeekTV. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at GlitterGeekAli. And in case you were about to spell Allie A-L-L-I-E, that is incorrect. It is A-L-I like Muhammad Ali. You can follow me at GlitterGeekAli on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat.
You are so professional at that. I couldn't even say. I've been doing podcasts for 10 years, and I would never have done it as professionally as you just did it.
Is that a sign?
Yeah, you should be doing this. I shouldn't. All right. Thanks for listening, guys, and goodbye.
I've got a cough. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're human.
I'm human. He created Ahsoka. He created Ezra. He created Kanan and Hera and everybody else. He did not create Thrawn. But
what is it? Oh, okay.
Let me see. I'm gonna Google
You're gonna look it up. Come on, you can get this. He's like the most famous person in Star Wars fandom.
I would know if we were.
He is Lucas's protege.
Yeah, no.
He's not Pablo Hidalgo.
No, he's not Pablo.
But
Hidalgo.
He hangs out with Pablo at all the conventions
all the time. Let's see. Oh my God, I cannot think of his name. This is so embarrassing because if we were having a regular conversation,
I know that's why this is funny because you know that like when a person,
Dave Filoni, I got
it.
Oh,
come on, you looked it up.
Yeah, because I looked it up. But I saw Dave Filoni, and I said, "Hey, I really like your work," and he did. I recognized him without his hat on.
Thanks. Yeah, I got it. Thanks. No, I love your work. I don't think that line that opens the movie, you know, this will begin to make things right. I do not believe for a second that Kazan and JJ sat there and said, "We're gonna take a shot at the man who gave us this."
No. Yeah, they have too much respect.
They are writers. There's no fucking way. This is the kind of things that fans dream up in their brains, and then they go,
"It's fan fiction. It's fan fiction." Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's fan of fan fiction. Yeah. It's ridiculous. There's no way these men respect the shit out of George, even if they think he's an annoying shit sometimes. They respect the shit out of him. They would never fucking throw him under the bus like that. And I don't think they even thought about it when they wrote that line. I think afterwards they were like, "Oh God, maybe we should have seen that one coming." That's much more likely than Kazan was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him." No fucking way.